runaway train with a heavy load of my past.
Hello, everybody. How's it going? My name is Carter. This is my first in-person guest. I have Connor Castaneda, my cousin, just graduated from Caprock High School. By the way, congratulations on that, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, how's it feel being like a fifth-grade graduate of high school?
It's nice. Like, I don't have to worry about waking up at 8 a.m. every day going to school, and I just get to hang out, be a regular person, an adult.
For sure.
Nice.
Yeah. So, are you finally getting into the swing of things? Like, oh man, it's finally summer. Like, are you into that summer like mode already?
Yeah, it's just kind of, it's weird because I feel like it's summer. I mean, I guess it is, but like it's not a summer between 2 school years, so it feels a lot different from any other summer I've ever had, right? So, I mean, I don't even know how to, like, I'm supposed to feel right now because I'm not going back to school in like a month or whatever,
Yeah. So, the crazy thing about, speaking of school, the exciting thing is, for you, I mean, I can only imagine exciting for me because I'm your cousin, but for you personally, I bet you're going to Harvard. That's the big news. Like, you're going to Harvard University, you got accepted, which is completely amazing. Like, it's been talked about with these. We were talking off air with Doppler Dave and all these different people. I mean, your story made news. It's completely like crazy, but like, what? Like, that's so fascinating. Kind of take me through that journey, like from beginning to end. Like, was Harvard like the whole Harvard news? Like, can you take me through that? Like, what was your process like? Like what happened? Take me to the whole thing. What happened?
Well, I mean, going into my senior year, I kind of knew I wanted to go to a good school, and I was like, I have all the stuff for it. I know I have a good resume, and I didn't know where I wanted to go, and so I would go and I would look up like, what's the best school if I want to do this major, and then I kind of realized I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was like, well, what's the best school overall? It's like, might as well apply.
Yeah, for sure.
And you look at it and the acceptance rate's like 3.5%. So I fully expect to get rejected, and then I have a couple weeks to go and send other applications to other schools that I have a good shot at. Yeah. And I go in, it's I turn my application, I kind of forget about it, and then middle of December, the week comes up where it's like Thursday, I'm gonna get the news.
Yeah.
And hardest week of my life because I have to work, I have a lot of stuff for school, it's like finals, and it's a crazy time, but then in the back of my head it's like, I'm finding out this week if I'm getting into Harvard.
Oh, really?
And so I spend the whole week kind of moderately stressing about everything, and then the day comes and I'm working, and so I literally open up the thing at work, and I go upstairs and kind of just like sit down in the office, and like I pull it up and it says like, congratulations. I never expected it. It's like, who expects to get into Harvard, right?
Yeah, for sure.
At that point. And so I don't even know what I'm supposed to do, and then I kind of like, it's cool for me. I tell some of the family and all that, but it's not like, it's not news at all. No one really knows about it. Like, there's a couple people at my school, and people kind of find out, and it's like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But then in about February, I got I moved on to the second phase of National Merit Scholar, and I was a semifinalist.
Oh, wow.
And, being from Caprock, we never have any semifinalists. And so they were really excited for that. And so whenever AISD found out, they wanted to do one of their little short stories about me. And she walked in, and I started doing this interview. It's regular, nothing about Harvard. And she's like, well, you're doing this National Merit Scholar, all of this type of stuff. What are you going to be doing a year from now? And I'm like, well, hopefully I'll still be in school at Harvard if I don't drop out, I guess. And she's like, is that where you're planning on going? I'm like, well, I got in and I didn't apply anywhere else, so it's my only choice right now.
So it kind of just came out of a whim, like you didn't plan on doing it, it just came out.
Yeah, she asked, and I just told her. I wasn't expecting, because I guess I'm kind of quiet about it. I don't like, if people know, they know about it, it's cool, but I really don't try and tell a lot of people, just kind of think it's too important. I don't think it's a big deal, right? Like, and I don't think it changes who I am, so I just, I'm me, and if people ask about it, I'll tell them about it. I don't think it's too big. Yeah. But once she found out, the whole interview changed to like, okay, you're going to Harvard, you're from Caprock, like, such a big change, and it goes on, and she's like, okay, I'm gonna publish this tomorrow, it's gonna come out on like the Facebook page or whatever. You can expect it to come out, and then you can see it, then show it to your family. I was like, okay, cool. And then the next morning, that You know, I think it came out on like a Thursday, and that
Oh, wow.
morning I got my wisdom teeth out. So I was out and I was drugged up. I couldn't, you know, I was walking around, you know, dazed,
Wow.
and I wasn't thinking. I didn't know what
So
was going
crazy.
on, right?
What a crazy story! Like in terms of events,
Yeah, it's like
everything's so fascinating.
it's just so much weird stuff. And then I go and I wake up and I have like 100 people that tagged me in that post.
Oh yeah.
Because I guess like a lot of like some of the further family, some other friends, they just never found out about it. And
Mhm.
so a lot of people tagged me, a lot of people shared it, and I think now that post is the most reacted to post on the district's like Facebook page.
Oh wow,
It had,
that's so
like,
crazy.
It had like 6,000 reacts or whatever, and then it had like 1,000 shares. And so everyone finds out about it really quick. Same day, it's like this this lady from News Channel 10 sends me an Instagram DM and it's like, hey, Doppler Dave really wants to interview you.
Oh wow.
And like,
It's so crazy.
you know, I've grown up in Amarillo and he's been here for like 40 years at this point.
Yeah.
He's like
He's
a
been-
legend. Everyone knows Doppler
Yeah,
Dave.
he's been in the game for a while. He's
And
been doing it for
good.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, he's such a cool guy, and it's like he's like a local legend. Everyone knows him, and so
Yeah.
I was like, of course I'm gonna
Right.
go do it.
Yeah.
You know, I'll take any opportunity to go talk to Doppler Dave. You know,
Let me see if I can fit in my schedule quick.
Yeah.
Dr. Doppler Dave.
like
or-
I cleared everything out. I didn't go to school that day. I didn't do anything. I was like, I'm gonna go, and I get to meet Doppler Dave, one of the coolest people in Amarillo.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and then, you know, I do that interview. It kind of gets it gets a little article on like News Channel 10 website.
Yeah.
And then it gets sent to, you know, all the other news stations. They kind of repost and all that. And then I get asked by like ABC7, KMR, KCIT, like everything. They're all trying to, you know, do a little interview, do something with me, and you know, everyone's trying to talk to me. It's like I'm so busy. And then in the middle of that, one of my friends who I've gone to school with for 13 years,
Yeah.
he also got into Harvard.
Yeah. I saw
And
that.
so, you know, it turns into like not only did one kid from Caprock get into Harvard, it's like two kids from the same school who have known each other forever got in,
Yeah.
right? Like such a story. And so everyone's trying to go and do stuff about it. And then just recently, I got to do an interview with one of the new school board members. He's a
Oh, yeah.
writer for one of the magazines in Amarillo.
Okay.
And so I got to do a little interview, and I
That's
think
cool.
that write-up is coming out in the next couple weeks. I'm not really sure.
That's pretty cool. So literally, in one interview that you didn't plan on doing, you
Yeah.
kind of just mentioned like, oh yeah, I'm going to Harvard, maybe
Yeah.
possibly next year. Then literally in a time like in a series of events, you're talking to Doppler Dave. You're doing news
Yeah, it's
stations.
like everybody.
And then you have a friend you said from Caprock, you know, that also got accepted into Harvard.
Yeah.
So like, sorry, I don't know where to start on this. So like, for you, were you planning like when you're looking to Harvard, like researching? Obviously, that's like a part of it. Obviously, like you like the school you want to go into. Like,
Yeah.
I'll make sure this the school is for me, and two, like their programs or anything like that. Like, were you like was Harvard or you were always number one choice, or was that something like you like? Oh, if I like you said, I want to get in just to get in, but
Yeah.
was that just something like, oh, like I don't know. Let me think about this. Like the fact that you got into it was amazing, and you're going to go and do like your future crazy great things. But like when you heard that your friends going into it, was that like how was that like when you took the
Yeah.
news?
I mean, that was really cool too, because, I mean, still, I think he's, 1,000 times smarter than me, leagues ahead of me.
Yeah.
He's such an incredible person in his own right, and
Mhm.
He's more of the type. Like,
Yeah.
we both have the same background. We're both like, fairly low income Hispanics from, Little Amarillo, Texas.
Yeah.
And so we're like the same background, but he kind of moved and he focused really hard on what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And he absolutely loves what he's going into.
That's awesome.
And so that was always really cool. And, I didn't know that he even applied. I kind of had, a feeling, but I didn't know for sure until like the day before the decisions came out.
Mhm.
And he told me, and it's like, to be quite honest, I was like, that's cool. It's just like the chance of him getting in it's so low because they already accepted one from Caprock.
Yeah.
And they haven't had anyone from Caprock in at least like 20 years.
Wow.
And I don't even think they had before that.
Yeah.
So for them to go from no one ever to having two in the same year is unheard of in
Crazy.
terms of those types of schools.
Yeah.
And I was like, they're not going to take two that are from the same background. And then next day, he goes and he sends me a text. He's like, "Hey, look at this," and he sends me his screen. It's like,
Oh, wow.
that's one of the coolest feelings that I had during the entire process, because not only do I get to go and
You can keep going. Sorry.
no, you're good. But not only do I get to go and see the world and experience all of this, like, as a kid from Amarillo, but I get someone else that's there with me that,
Yeah.
you know, like, we're not just going to be, like, next to each other the whole time, like, kind of blocking each other off. But, you know, if there's
That's
a day
pretty
where
cool.
it's like, you know, I just want, like, I want to taste the home, we can go out and get, I can go get a tea or something like that.
Yeah,
Do,
for
like,
sure.
a Texas thing, you know?
Yeah.
It's real cool. And so that's something that I really looked forward to. And I guess we kind of had different paths, because his first choice was Stanford.
Oh, wow.
And it's been Stanford for a little bit. But he ended up not getting into Stanford. He sent out an application to Harvard just, like, you know, on a whim, and then ended up getting in. But for me, like, I knew, like, years ago, like, that's the school I wanted to go to, right? Like, it's the best. I wanted to be the best. I always thought, like, you know, people say you can do anything, if that's true, then I might as well prove it myself.
Sure. Yeah.
And, you know,
that.
like, I didn't really know what I wanted to do at the time. I was like, that's just where I'm going to go.
Yeah.
But then, as, you know, I get older, I'm like, you know, hey, maybe I want to go to medical school, right? And it's like, you know, that's, I guess, you know, kids are like, people are like, oh, you're smart, you know, let's go to medical school, go be a doctor. So I'm like, okay, I'll look into it. And then I changed my mind. I was like, you know what, I'm not going to go to Harvard. They're not the best medical school. I want to go to, like, Johns Hopkins.
Yeah.
And then, you know, like, a year later, I was like, you know, maybe I want to go into, like, physics. I want to go and do something, like, on the really advanced science part. And so I changed my mind again. I wanted to go to Caltech, and that was my top choice. And so I tried, like, it felt like every other school that was on the same tier as Harvard, I was looking into, just, you know, I guess trying to prove myself, like, I'm not going to Harvard just because it's Harvard. Like, it's just because I wanted to go there. But now I want to go other places. And then, you know, I keep going around. It's like, I don't even know what I want to do. It's just, you know, I tried to not go to Harvard just because it's Harvard. And then I eventually circled back, and it's like, this is just the best school for what I'm trying to do, for who I want to be.
Most definitely.
And it's the best for me. So I, you know, kind of just threw it all out there. Got really, really lucky. You know, I don't think I could do it again, but I put everything into it and got it back, I guess.
For sure. I mean, I wouldn't call it luck, because, I mean, you definitely think you earned it. I mean, you're, like, even, I'm not just saying this because you're here, but, like, I feel like you and your siblings were, like, super smart. Like, obviously, like, I feel like, for me, I was just, like, I went to WT and anything like that. Like, I always knew I was going to WT. But for me, that's not a shot at WT, anybody watching. But, like, but I was like, man, like, I was like, out of our whole family, I feel like you, your brother, your sister, like, and y'all, like, had something, like, y'all, like, so smart. Like, I remember, like, quick little story. I remember, I think we went to go watch a movie a while back, I think, a few years back, during Christmas time. And I remember my niece, she was like, hey, what? She was like, always curious, like asking weird questions, like, what's blah, blah, blah times blah, blah, blah if you divide the, like, she was, like, asking, like, random, like, questions, whatever. And she happened to ask this question, like, what's 19 times 19? And your brother, Chaz, shout out to Chaz, he's like, right off the bat, like, it's blah, blah, blah. I'm like, how do you know that? And then, like, all of a sudden, like, from that point on, it's like, oh, man, these guys are, like, I knew y'all were smart, but, like, these are, like, on an elite level of smartness. So I don't think, like, I wouldn't call it luck, because I feel like you definitely did earn that. So I don't want to think, like, you just finished it, like, oh, I got lucky, blah, blah, blah. No, like, I think y'all definitely, like, I can only imagine what your classes are like. Because what's cool, too, about Connor, I almost called you Chaz, I'm sorry. Cool about Connor is, like, he also graduated, I don't know if you want to talk about this, as valedictorian? I always get that messed up word up. I always get that and salutatorian mixed up.
Yeah.
I don't know why. But you also graduated valedictorian. So, I mean, like, obviously what you're doing is right. I mean, that's so cool, I think.
I mean, it's just like, you know, I think in my little bubble, like, I did as good as I could. And then I read the stories about other kids.
Yeah.
And there's, you know, there's a girl in my class who went and she was a co-author on this, like, PhD mathematics thesis.
Yeah.
Whenever she was, like, 15, I'm like, these people are doing incredible things. I have people who are Olympians, people who are on, like, national athletic teams, people who are graduating, you know, valedictorian from the best schools in the country. And, you know, if you go and look at the admissions, like, I think Harvard gets about 8,000 valedictorians that apply, and they only have 2,000 spots. So, only like 1 in 10 are actually going to get in realistically. So it's like, even with like all these things that like are such a big deal, like in the little Amarillo bubble, like on a wider spread, it's like, it's just barely scratching the surface of what people my age are doing all across the country and all across the world too, because they're accepting people from over 100 different countries. Yeah, which is just insane to me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, speaking like you said, like, I want to talk about like a little bit about like you graduating as valedictorian and all of that. Like, what was that like whole process like? Like, you did all, like you said, you were part of the like honor and stuff or anything like that in high school and did all this amazing things. Obviously, you're going to Harvard and all that, but like, for you, like, when you got the news that you were valedictorian like for Caprock, like, was that something like you kind of knew going into it, or was that something kind of like surprised? Not so much surprised you, but like caught you off guard. Like, what was that like?
I mean, this probably makes me look the worst, but like I kind of knew, and I've known for a while. And it's not necessarily like I'm like really cocky and I'm like, oh, there's no way that anyone else could beat me. It's more of like I knew my GPA, I knew others' GPA. I kind of knew what I could get away with, and I knew like my trends, and I was like, even if I go down at this rate, like there's no way that they could catch me. I ended up being like almost 2 full points ahead, which is like, other schools, like you go to like Tesco, so they're number 1 versus number 20 is probably like a point away. Like they're super, super close up there. Yeah. And I guess I'm a huge outlier. And like, I kind of like attest it to all of the work I've done and kind of the opportunities I threw at myself. Like, the end of my freshman year was 2020. That was COVID year. Yeah. And so many weird things are going on. And then like with school and with education, it's a crazy place to be. One of the weirdest times to be a high school student. And then I kind of took the opportunity, like I'm doing all these classes online, it's going to be a different year. And so I went, I threw it out myself. I took like 6 college classes. I went and I did as much as I possibly could, as much as I could fit into my time. And, I kind of thrived, and it got me to the point where like, GPA wise and for rank, like it got to the point where no one could pass me just based off of like pure math and statistics. Like there's nothing anyone else could do at that point.
Yeah. So whenever you got to that point, like, so whenever like you're doing all these classes, like you mentioned, like you're doing all this and that, like credit wise for your your coursework, I mean, like, were you like, when you knew like math wise, like point wise, like, so did you come to the point like, okay, like, I don't know if relax is the right word I want to use, but were you like more like in this mode, like, okay, like this last semester, this last few days or weeks, where you're kind of just like, you're kind of just chilling and like sitting back a little bit, like easing off the gas pedal a little bit?
Kind of. I mean, like, not that I stopped trying entirely, because, like when I turned in my work, it might be a couple days late, but I turned it in. Yeah. Right? But like, it's so much pressure eased off of me, because I knew that like, I could go out and, I knew the grades I had in the past. I could have by far the worst semester of my high school career, and I would still be like a point ahead. Yeah. Like, there's not much further I could fall because of how few classes I was taking and what I was doing. And then at that point, it's like, senior teachers, they kind of know it's like, none of these kids really want to be here. They're ready to graduate. So they kind of relax everything a little bit too. They kind of make it easier for me, especially.
That's pretty cool. I mean, like I graduated from Tascosa also in 2016. That's pretty much, I thought I was the only one who noticed that too. I was like, man, senior teachers are like, not that they don't care, but it's like they know, like, seniors, they've been here the last 4 years, they just want to get out. Kind of mentality. That senioritis is really hitting hard, and really, they're ready to go take the next chapter of life, whether that may be, whether it be college or trade school or military or this or that. But that's so crazy. Like, but yeah, I remember I had a teacher, I'm not gonna say what class or anything like that, my senior year, but he's like the specific teacher, like, the first day of class, like, he's like, we're not going to take more than a quarter page of notes, guys. Like, we're not going to exceed a paragraph of notes. Like, don't feel like we're going to, like, because you're going to learn, but you're not going to, like, your hands aren't going to be cramping. Like, it's like, it's like, we're going to work, but, like, I'm not going to, like, cram, like, 8 chapters of work and, like, 20 pages of, like, stuff. If you're a senior for a reason, like, you're going to work, but don't, like, stress yourself over this class, So like the fact that like I had a teacher like that, I'm like, I wish all my teachers were like that in high school. I probably would have been a straight A student. Like, but obviously I wasn't. But like, I mean, I wasn't like a straight. I wasn't like a. I was like an A B student at best, you know. But yeah, I was like one of those people. Was like, man, like that's so cool. Like, I knew I was going to Emerald College and WT after that. So like, yeah, I was like, for me, there's no Harvard. There's no way I'm reaching Harvard. There's no way in the world.
I mean, I think like for each person, it's like your individual thing. There's a best path to go, and so like for me, you know, I'm not really sure what I want to do still to this day, but I know I want to go into like math or science, and I want to do something that I can't really do to the same extent here, and so I think there's a lot of majors where if I were to go to Harvard, I'd be stupid. Like if I were to go into something like agriculture, why would I leave the Texas Panhandle and WT, who's one of the best agriculture schools in the state and in the country, right? Yeah. And if I was going into something like education, nursing, you know, anything like on that level, or even like music, you know, being a musician, if I decide to go down that path, like there's no reason I would want to go to a school like Harvard because it's not the best place for me to be. Yeah. And so like I think for communications, like you're doing stuff in the Panhandle, you're doing stuff with all these local stations. It's like, you know, make your connections here. It's like that's the best path. Yeah. And so I think for each person, it's like it's not a matter of like going to like the best overall, because realistically, the best overall
is best for
isn't
like, each person.
Isn't that good for some stuff?
Yeah, for sure.
You know.
Yeah, I get that. So like I understand like each person, like it's not like each thing is not going to be like cookie cutter or anything like that. I mean, every journey's different for a reason, like, for a good way. That makes any sense, you know. So, but yeah, you also mentioned something too. You said you did like music wise. You and your brother like were part of the band in high school, right? Yeah. An orchestra, like, or is it or band or orchestra?
He did band and orchestra. I only did band, but like I was as involved as I could be. Yeah. So you know, I did every single group that we had, and I was like a drum major, so I was like at the best position I could be. You know, I did whatever I could. I figured like I can't just do academics. I don't want to burn myself out, and so I threw myself into music because that was just something I love, and I still, you know, I don't think I could do that for a living because I don't think that's my calling, but I love it, and I still plan on being a musician. You know, like that's my whole life I love to keep a foot in music. You know, that's so cool. It just means a lot to me. And then, you know, I think the ability to grab this big piece of metal and make like beautiful sounds and music notes come out of it. It's something that's super cool that you can't really get in any other, you know, like hobby or anything. You know. Yeah.
So were you always like into music? Like, were you something like you did your whole life, or that's something that you feel like you needed an output in high school, so you decided to pick it up? Like, when did your music career start?
Well, I've played saxophone since like 6th grade, since they started doing it like the middle school. Yeah. And before that, I probably started playing piano. I played for like 3 or 4 years, starting in I think 3rd grade. It was whenever Kara and Chaz, both of my siblings, they were both doing music, and they were doing piano too. Oh, and so I kind of went and I saw them doing it. I saw how much fun they had, and I was like, you know, I want to do that too. Yeah. You know, I was like, I guess I had a musical mind. I saw the way that everything worked, and I was like, this is what I want to do. Even if that's not going to be what I do for my whole life, I really want to be able to play an instrument. I thought that was one of the coolest things. I still think it is. Like,
yeah, for sure.
You see the, you know, like a virtuoso, like a violinist. It's like they're doing things that, like, they're better at their specific field than anybody else in the world. Yeah, you know,
for sure. Did you have a specific instrument that came natural to you? Like, did you try all of them? Not all of them, but like, did you try like a majority of them? Like, maybe like, okay, this is probably more like, am I more like a woodwind person or drums, or I'm more this, or like the one that came to more natural?
I mean, I think like I've always been the best at woodwinds because I started on saxophone. I think saxophone was like the perfect instrument for me because of like how versatile it was, and like, you know, like being able to do jazz. Like, one of the things I absolutely loved going into high school that was so different from middle school is like getting to do jazz, a whole different group, a different meaning for music is super cool. But even like in like junior year, I started playing a little bit of clarinet. I kind of learned how to play flute. I suck at it. I would not recommend listening to me play flute. But you know, I got to do all this. You know, do a lot of the different woodwinds, and I thought I was all right at them. You know, I tried brass. It was okay. And then percussion, I guess like I'm not too bad. You
Yeah.
know, like we had a big percussion ensemble where we got to go to like Lubbock, and we got to perform this little competition and all that. I got to do stuff like that, and I thought it was pretty cool, but
Yeah.
it was by far the best at playing saxophone.
Cool. That's so cool that you did all this different stuff. Like, you're just like, your high school career is like so like cool. Like one of the cool ones. Like you're valedictorian and did the band and you did all these different. Like, so cool. Like,
It was just packed.
yeah, like, it was like jam packed. You crammed a lot in those 4 years or
Yeah.
something. Like, so, like, with this next chapter, you're graduated obviously, and you're going to Harvard, doing these amazing things. Like, so like, that's so crazy. Like, you're about like at the time of this recording, you'll probably already be in Boston by this chance, or by this time, probably by the time it's recording. It's completely crazy. Like, you're moving from Amarillo, like you said, Little Amarillo to Boston. Have you ever been like? Did you ever take a school trip to Boston? Like, to Boston, to Harvard? Did you ever like take a trip, or was it just
Yeah.
like kind of like? So what was that like?
Well, I got to go last year in the beginning of the summer.
Mhm.
We went up to the Northeast. I got to go to New York for a few days, and then I got to go to Boston for a few days. And so,
Nice.
you know, at that point, I kind of decided like 3 of my top choices were Columbia, Harvard, and Brown, and MIT too. MIT
Yeah.
is such an amazing school. It's also in Boston, right next
Yeah,
to Harvard. So
for
I guess
sure.
that made it easy. But I got to go see all those schools, and you know, Harvard was the only school that I didn't get to actually take a tour of because they're so full. And you know, they have like
Mhm.
tours for prospective students, but most of the time it just gets filled up by random people that just want to go get a tour of Harvard.
Yeah.
Right? It's not actually people who would go there, who would apply. And so I kind of got screwed over with not being able to take a tour, but I still got to walk around. And their campus, like, they have the gates open. You can see all of the statues and all of the buildings, and like, you walk around and it's like you're in a different world because, you know, the campus is 400 years old.
Wow.
All of those buildings, like, you know,
Yeah.
it's like George Washington housed his troops in those buildings
Wow.
like
So
250
crazy.
years ago. It's a really weird, like, place to be because so much has
Yeah.
gone on. So much history has been built right
Yeah.
around Harvard. It's like it's a little tiny corner of Boston, and
Yeah.
then everything changed around it, and it kind of stayed the same. So you have this, you know, beautiful,
Yeah.
like, little courtyard area, grass,
Yeah.
trees, and it's like just a place unlike any other.
Yeah.
And then I ended up going back after I got in. They paid for me to take a flight up to Boston. I got to stay there for a couple days, and they had a ton of events. They had a lot of stuff that we could do for the weekend, and that was one of the best experiences I've probably ever had, you know, in high school, probably in my life.
Yeah.
You know, like, I get to go hang out with kids that are kind of like me. It's like no one expects to get into Harvard. You know,
Yeah.
you can be the best kid at the best school, and it's still like you're not going to expect anything. And still, like, these kids are, you know, they're just fascinated with the world around them. And
Yeah.
like, I feel like that's kind of where I've always been. Whereas, like, sometimes kids around me, it's like I feel like they're just kind of trying to finish what they're doing and move on to the next thing. Whereas, like, I've always wanted to, you know, go
Yeah.
further, go for the bigger picture. And I feel like that's what all those kids are doing. So that was like a really eye-opening experience because I didn't really know who I was supposed to be. Like, I was like, I'm this kid
Yeah.
who got into Harvard, but what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
And then I go up there and it's like, this is who I am now, you know?
Yeah, for sure. It's so crazy. I mean, like, I think that perspective, like you said, like, there's always people out there who, like, they're just getting it done to go to the next thing. Like you said, like, you're always thinking about the bigger picture, like, than that. So I'm like, that's such an interesting, like,
Yeah.
way of looking at it, because that's really stuck out to me when you said that. Because I'm like, I feel like a whole lot of people, a little less people, like, people your age, because I'm 25, and people's like, oh, you're so young, but like, you're like 18, right? 17,
Yeah.
18. I'm like, the fact that you're this, like, young and you're looking at that, like, that way, like, that's so crazy. Like, when you get to Harvard, I think that's only going to be like this big thing too. Like, it's going to, like, your success is going to be huge, because, like, if you're looking at it now, I can only imagine what we're going to be able to accomplish, because, like, I don't think a whole lot of people like that age are thinking like that. Like, for me in this podcast, I'm literally, like, you saw me set it up. It's not anything great,
Yeah.
but it's like you said, I'm trying to look at the bigger picture. Like, no, I'm not making a whole lot, like, any money off of it. Actually, I'm saying not a whole lot of money. It's actually $0 I'm making. But but the fact that, like, I'm actually,
You're starting. You're getting
Yeah.
a place, like, you're looking forward. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm doing this. You know, the first episode, it's not like, hey, welcome to my podcast. It's like episode 1.
Yeah.
You know you're going to have a second episode.
Yeah.
You know you're going to have a third and a fourth.
Yeah.
You know, you keep going. And, you know, I think that's what makes it, like, people like us that, like, where it's like we stand out on our own, our own way. It's like with you, it's like you said, you're at Tascosa, like, okay, I'm gonna go to Emerald College, I'm gonna get my basics, I'm gonna do like this is the best choice for me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move on to WT after that.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna do this, and then this, and this. It's like you had all this stuff where it's like, you had, even if it like wasn't really like right in line, and you knew like exactly what was going on. It's like, this is my plan, and one way or another, I'm gonna get it done. And then you did, and now you're out, doing cool stuff like. Like the podcast, like it's super cool that you're able to just go out and start it, man. And have like your own thing. I think that's kind of what I'd done too. Like, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what school I wanted to go to, and I didn't really know who I was.
Yeah.
But I knew that I stood out in one way, and I was like, well, after I graduate high school, I know I have to do something else.
Yeah.
I have to go on, and people want to. It's like, oh, you want to make money, or you want to go do a certain career, you want to have like a certain path, live in a certain place, but no one really thinks about how you're going to get there from being just like a high school student.
Yeah.
Like I've never lived outside of Amarillo. I've lived in the same house, gone to the same schools.
Yeah.
Like I've been in one place. And so for me to be a 17-year-old kid somewhere before senior year to see like, okay, I got to start getting stuff ready to apply now.
Yeah.
And all that, like, it's something that not many other kids are actually doing.
No.
And, looking at it like other kids from other schools, some of the other kids that got in, it's like, they know. Their parents, like maybe their mom or dad, they went to Harvard. Maybe their grandparent, their sibling.
Yeah.
They have someone, so they have that connection. They have that foot in the door, so they know what to do. They know what to expect. But someone like me, like I kind of had to make my own path, and I probably didn't choose the best way. But at this point, I got to the destination.
Yeah.
So, I mean, really, that's all I can ask for.
Yeah, and so that's all it's all about. I think it's like not so much how you get to point A to point B. Sometimes it's all about like I think Steve Jobs has this really good quote. I'm gonna mess it up, but I'm not gonna say it verbatim. But the idea of this quote is like he said, like, it's all about connecting these dots, whatever. But when you look back, you're like, oh man, that's really like. He said something along the lines like, you're connecting these dots, something like that, and then you look back like, oh man, like you really doesn't matter how you got there. It's pretty much just like talking about like the fact that you got it there. That you did it, you put in the work. Because like he's like that's what like message I try to talk about on my podcast. It's like, man, I'm like, it doesn't matter, like you don't have to be like this big name person or anything like that. That's like the message, like, hey, just tread your own path. You never know where you're gonna end up in the long run. Like that's one thing. Is like, if I didn't want to do my own podcast, I wouldn't be doing it. Guess what? I wouldn't be doing it. But like, I want to help like bring this message out to people. Like no matter what the message is, like everybody's got a journey. For me, it's like setting up like a camera and a laptop and a couple microphones and talking to somebody. Yeah. But then for you, it's like you said, like, man, I'm not looking at the bigger. I'm looking at the bigger picture. I'm not just doing something to get it done. And you wound up at Harvard, Yeah. So it's like, oh, that's one big thing I feel like this generation, like, I think is getting into a little bit more, maybe, or especially your age. I say younger kids, but like we're the same like generation pretty much. Yeah. Like you're not that much. I'm not entirely super older than you are. I'm not like I'm older. Don't get me wrong, but I'm like 7 years older than you are. Yeah. But I'm like, that's crazy. When I said that, dang, I'm 7 years older than you.
Well, I mean, it's like with me, like I'm looking at kids who are like going into like middle school, and it's like you can, I get to do like the senior walk at the end of the year. Yeah. And I see these kids, I'm like, these kids in 10 years are going to be regular adults. Yeah. Working a career, going to school. They're going to be all over the place, and like they don't even know it yet. They haven't realized it. Because at what point do you really think about the fact like, oh, I'm going to be an adult? Exactly, 3.5 years I'm going to be doing this. Like no one thinks about it. It's like you're a kid. Yeah. You do kid stuff. You go to school, you go home, you play games, kind of do whatever you want, but you're not thinking about your life. And then at one point it's like a dramatic shift to be like, I go and I do this interview about, a National Merit Scholar, and it's like the thing about Harvard gets out, and I look at it, I'm like, in 2 months I'm going to be an adult. In another 4 months after that, I'm going to be at Harvard. Yeah. Where am I going to be in 5 years? Like, I'll have some type of degree. Yeah. Hopefully, maybe. It might not even be from Harvard. If I end up like transferring out or whatever, like I don't know what my life is, but I'm not even like so far removed from it. Yeah. You always think like you're going to be a kid forever until you're not, and then everything hits you. Yeah. And then now I'm like, I don't want the same thing to happen when I'm 22 graduating from college. Like, I don't even know where everything's going. I don't know what I'm doing. So that's
so crazy. Yeah, like that's so crazy. Like I never thought about it like that. Like I'm 25 now. I feel like had I known then what I know now, I feel like I think like said middle school going to high school or high school leaving high school, I would have been like, man, like that would have been so crazy. Like I'm just a kid. Like I'm just like this. Like I don't know. I don't even know what I don't know yet. Like if that makes any sense, you know. Like like
you don't even realize the unknown.
Yeah, like you're so young. Like yeah, I'm gonna go do this. Okay, go do that. Like it feels like you're so young. Like you don't like. There's so much you can do. If that makes any sense. Like you make such a great point saying that too. Like you could do, like there's so many possibilities you could do. You know, like you're so young. Like there's like you said, middle schoolers now. Like I can only imagine. Like you said, a few years from now they're gonna be full blown adults. You know, doing this and that. Like when you said that, I'm like I'm trying to fathom that. I'm like that's so weird. Like I'm trying to picture it, but yeah, that's so crazy.
You know, like I look at it, and the way I see it is like, you look at just the age difference, and it's like the same difference from you to me is me to this little 6th grade kid, right?
Wow.
So like, I'm in the middle of this transition, right, from being a 6th grade kid to being to where you're at, and I'm in the middle, right? And it's kind of hard to see like where should I be at this point, right? Like I was graduating high school, but like realistically, mentally, where am I supposed to be at? You know? And so that's something I've been kind of trying to figure out now while I have the time and while I guess I'm able to take a step back before I'm like, a junior, senior in college, and I don't know what I want to do. I don't know where life is taking me, right?
Yeah.
It's like now at least I can take a step back and kind of weigh my options before it's too late. Yeah,
I've been there. I'm still in that thought process even now. Like it feels like not so much in that thought process, but it's more like okay, like obviously it's like one of those things obviously in life. It's like you obviously learn through experience. So obviously like one of those things. I was like, oh man, I'm 25. If I was 18, I would have done. I would have done X, Y, Z, or done this or done that differently. It's like always that constant like mental battle. Like, oh man, like you said, like I'm in that phase. Like I've been there before. I know what you're talking about. It's like you graduated from high school. It's like, oh, okay, I'm a high school graduate. Like for me, I can't speak for you, but for me personally, I was like, and I thought like, man, I just graduated from Tascosa in 2016. I wasn't I was an okay student, like academically. I was like ABs, ABs and stuff like that. I wrestled, did all that stuff. Like I wasn't like my brothers in the sense of like, I want to make straight A's. I want to do that. I wasn't like, that wasn't my thing. But I knew like at the end of the road, I was going to go. I had a route and I was going to do it. But when I graduated from high school, it's like, man, I'm just like, okay, I guess I'm going to go to Emerald College next. Like, what's, but everything like you said, I was just young, at the time. But like, had I thought about it now, I was like, yeah, I want to go conquer this. Okay, blah blah blah. Like it's just one of those things too. Like what's am I a kid? Am I not a kid? Like you're always in that constant thought. At least I was.
Yeah, no, I get it, and it's like that's how I'm feeling right now. Like, all this stuff has come and all the good fortune, but at what point is it over? And is it time for me to go to the next thing? Right?
Yeah.
And I don't even know what the next thing is.
Yeah.
So how am I supposed to know when to go on? Like,
yeah.
It's like I'm stuck in this weird phase of time that's like, I feel like it's never gonna end. But in 2 days, I'm gonna be in Boston, basically for the next 4 years.
Yeah. It's completely crazy. I mean, I think I joke around with you all the time. Like a few times, I'm like, if there's ever chance I'm in Boston, we gotta go do something, go hang out.
We're going to Red Sox.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I still thought about that because I see your shirt and we're talking off air about it. Like, I've never been to Boston ever, so like that's one thing on my bucket list as a sports fan. Like, I gotta go to Fenway. Obviously, that's a historic, stadium. I have to go to Boston.
I still haven't even had my first game at Fenway.
Really?
And I'm so excited. Like, I'm looking at it, I'm looking at their schedule, and they play in, like, either this week or next week, they play a 3-game series against the Marlins. I would love to go see Yuri Perez.
Oh, that would be so cool.
Bro's, like, 20 years old. He's barely older than me.
Yeah.
Like, he's
that's so crazy.
Still, like, he's a young guy.
Yeah.
And he's out here, one of the most, like, I guess, the highest prospects in baseball right now. And, like, he's just out here pitching. He's out here having fun.
Yeah.
And it's like, I would love to go see him play, especially at Fenway, sitting on the green monster. Like, what other place would you rather be
for sure
in the baseball world? Like, there's nothing like it.
No, I don't think at all, because it feels like I go to the Ranger Stadium. I've been to the older, not like the Globe Life and like the new one now. I've been to both of those like a bunch. But for like going to Fenway, it feels like that would be like Fenway, Yankee Stadium, like all the like big historic like places that you like. I'm like, that's like a bucket list thing. It's like sitting in the Green Monster, doing this, like, hopefully I can. By the time I go to Fenway, hopefully that whole trip, I want to be talking like a text when I get there. Hopefully, if I'm not living, by the time I leave, if I'm not talking like Marky Mark or Mark Wahlberg or any of those kind of guys, I want to be upset.
You gotta watch Good Will Hunting or whatever like 20 times.
Yeah.
Get the accent on. So like so much of an outsider. I guess.
Yeah. Listen to Good Vibrations a lot, I guess.
Yeah. Even me, like I go up there and I talk weird compared to everyone else. And I don't even think I have that big of an accent. But then like you go up there. I guess it's just because even if I had no accent, I'm so different. Yeah. They're like, oh, you're from Texas, huh? It's like, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I've had that situation like we were talking. I went to Las Vegas a couple of weeks ago. I don't think I've ever said that on air yet, but like Vegas, we were talking off air, and then and then even going there, I think you can tell there's a difference in accents, or even in Colorado, because I have a brother that lives there or anything like that, relatives that live there, But so people up there, every time we go visit anybody up there, it's like, I always get the same comment or the same thing like, oh, you're from Texas, aren't you? Or you have but you're not from here, are you?
I like the first time you say y'all in a sentence, people are like, oh, okay, he's from Texas. It's like,
because I don't hear it because I think we're just so accustomed.
Talking regular.
Yeah, to us we're talking regular.
Neither of us have an accent. But then if you go back and you watch, it's like, oh wow, we have the thickest accent ever.
Yeah, we say y'all or whatever, just stuff like that. Like, there's so many things that like we say that's like you said, I don't pick up on. Like,
4-word construction to say y'all is like crazy.
Yeah,
like there's nowhere else where you're gonna find that type of stuff, and so it's like it's weird going other places. I try and hide it as much as I can, but even then, it's like just habit kicks in.
Yeah,
I say like what are y'all doing? It's like at that point you can't even hide it anymore.
Yeah,
it came out and it's out.
Yeah, for sure. I remember, I literally was thinking about this the other day, like the word y'all of and y'all or anything like that. Like, y'all is already a conjunction. It's a made up word, but it's a conjunction of you all. Yeah. And y'all of is like the biggest, like, you said it before, it's like, it's a conjunction with like another conjunction. It's like you all would have, or I don't know, like.
It's like, I think realistically, if you were speaking with a Texas accent, you come up with the longest, like, contracted word. It's like, y'all didn't have. So it's like, y'all would not have. You all would not have, I guess. It's like, that's just insane. And I guess it only happens here in Texas. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to...
I say words that don't exist all the time, but if people know what you're talking about, it's not that bad, I guess.
Yeah. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, trying to explain words, like Texas slang words to, like, a non-Texas person. Non-Texans, like, I really had someone, like, I was talking to someone long ago, I think it was when I was at WT, and I'm like, so, from WT, I think you're going to learn for college, probably Harvard is going to be a lot more than it is definitely. You're going to see a lot more at Harvard than I did at WT. But like at WT, you have people obviously not just from the Emerald Canyon area, but like you're getting
all over the place.
Oh, like you got the countries. Like there's a girl I knew from Iceland or something like that, some other country, like completely like.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I remember talking to some people like. I think they're getting accustomed, like even from different states, like they're getting accustomed from Texas, and like I'm so hard to explain. It's like I overheard someone say "dadgum" the other day, and someone asked, like, "What's that mean?" Like,
I don't know.
I don't know. Like, how do you explain "dadgum" for? Like, how do you explain that? Like,
it's like if I knew, like, I would use the other words. It's just there's no other word for like "dadgum" it. Like it's just there.
Yeah, it comes out like. How do you explain? It's like. Instead of saying "darn it" or like the swear part of it, it's like, oh man, how do you explain "dadgum"? Like it's just, I don't know. It comes out of us. It doesn't. It's just a noise that comes out. It doesn't make it. If you spell it out, "dadgum," like it doesn't make any sense.
No, it makes no sense.
But yeah, so by the time if I go to Fenway or Boston visit you, whatever, it's gonna be definitely a big culture change. I think for sure.
Yeah, because you're not a fan. You're not a big Rangers fan, right? Or
I am. Well. Growing up with my brother and my dad, I watched him all the time. But like when I was in high school, I became a big fan of Bryce Harper.
So you're a Nats fan.
Yeah, that's how it started. Because I was a fan of Bryce Harper, and it's over time became a Yankee or Nationals fan.
Yeah.
And then just come like stuff like that. So I kind of saw like the bad and the ugly within them, the good, the bad, the ugly, I guess. From seeing Bryce Harper play and like all these great players. I mean, I say great, but good players. Like I could say names.
Like of our time, like it's you grow up as a little kid watching someone. It's like even like in the grand scheme of things, it's not that good.
Yeah.
He might not be the best player of all time, but like to you, like as a kid, it's like that's who you watch.
Yeah. Yeah. Like at one point, like I want to say names that people are they play for the Nationals. If I said them now, they might be big names, but back then, like if I say Bryce Harper, people don't know who Bryce Harper is. Like if you're a sports fan, Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, like.
And they all went on to be really good on other teams.
Juan Soto. At one point, they were the three teammates on one team.
They won in 2019, right?
Yeah, but literally, Bryce. That was a year after Bryce Harper left.
Yeah.
So literally,
that is a year after he left.
So literally, he left to go to Philadelphia, and literally the next season they won a World Series. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like the time, like.
Yeah, and then 4 years later, he goes and he makes it to the World Series, loses to the Astros.
Yeah.
Which, as you'd expect. As an Astros fan, I guess.
Yeah.
That's what I would expect. But like,
I forgot you're an Astros fan, huh?
Yeah. Huge Astros fan, and like, obviously like because of like my dad and like the family, but also like, just being from Texas, it's like the Rangers. I feel like the Rangers are in the same places like the Cowboys, where like, they always have such high expectations. They never deliver.
Yeah.
And so like I can't stand like Jerry Jones, and I can't stand like the Rangers sometimes because they're just like 2010. Like, they blew it so bad that, like, how could you be a Rangers fan after that? But I think baseball, like, kind of like how you're a fan of Bryce Harper, like, I'm a huge fan of just individual players.
Yeah.
Like, some of these young guys, it's, like, super cool, like, the Diamondbacks. How can you not like the Diamondbacks right now?
For sure.
I can't think of anyone who, like, is like, oh, man, Diamondbacks keep winning. I hate the fact that they're good. It's like, you go and you watch, like, guys like Corbin Carroll, like, that played for Amarillo last year.
Yeah.
It's super cool to watch him knowing that he was here last year, but also, like, even if I wasn't from Amarillo, like, it's super cool to see that, like, it's just a young guy going out having fun. You see him run the bases, he's having the time of his life.
For sure.
And they're doing really well. They haven't done well in the past, right? The past few years. And it's kind of the same, like, like you watch the Kings, the Sacramento Kings last year. Like, how can you hate the Kings?
Yeah.
They're just a young team who hasn't been here in a long time.
Most definitely.
They're making, the most of what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so, I think baseball, like, that's kind of how I see it, is like, I love certain players. Like, some of these young guys, like Julio Rodriguez. Like, how can you watch a guy like that and, be disappointed in baseball? Like, I guess some of the people who are used to, like, watching baseball from, like, the 80s, 90s, where it's, like, a completely different game. It's, like, a pitcher's game.
Yeah.
And now, like, they're changing all the rules and, like, it's different. But at the same time, like, the place we're going, like, seeing all these amazing young guys go out and just kill it, like, it's such a cool place to be in. It's one of the biggest, like, shifts that there's been in sports recently that I can think of. It's like, like the shift from, like, the running heavy offense
Most
in the
definitely.
NFL going to, like, a passing offense with guys like Pat Mahomes being, like, the legends of the league. Like, it's, that baseball shift is super cool to me.
For sure. Yeah, I think it's definitely becoming a shift for sure. I mean, like, I remember, like, you mentioned 2010 Rangers. There's a lot of, you made a lot of good points. But 2010 Rangers, you said they let you down. But, like, I was, like, in middle school when that happened. I was like 13 when that happened. So if you think they let you down, well, they let me down 2 years back to back on the World Series. So the fact that they broke my heart twice, and that's kind of like, okay, I became more of a fan of individuals, like personality, like Bryce Harper. He came on the scene really good, like really cool. I thought, and he left. I'm like, oh man, he left the Nationals. How could you do that? I kind of stuck with the Nationals, and then obviously he started doing good. I'm like, I guess you kind of redeemed yourself a little bit, but so excuse me. So the fact that, like you said, there's a lot of even stuff going on nowadays with like baseball in general. You're talking like a little bit about your shirt before we got on air, which is kind of a whole funny situation. Do you kind of want to explain that?
Yeah, so like the Oakland A's are about to move out of Oakland because they couldn't get a new stadium contract or whatever, and they've been doing really bad the past few years, so their attendance is going down. But like, if you look at it, in 2019 they won like 98 games or whatever.
Yeah.
They were a good team. They had a lot of really good young players, and then the owner goes and he sells all the players, has the lowest payroll in baseball, or one of the lowest for the next few years. He gets rid of everybody that actually has a chance to be a good player, and kind of sits there with a mediocre roster, losing games, and then the attendance goes down. And at that point, he kind of planned it so that he would have an excuse to say, well, I'm having no attendance here, I'm going to move to Las Vegas, because that's what he wanted. Yeah. And so all the fans, they planned a reverse boycott. They had something like 25,000 people show up to a game on like a Tuesday night. Yeah. Like, that's triple the highest attendance, or their average attendance. Mm-hmm. Not the highest attendance, but, probably double their highest attendance. It's, so many people went to that game, and then they had these shirts that say sell, right? And so, they go, and every inning, anytime someone goes up to bat, it's like, sell the team, sell the team. Yeah. And it's like, all the fans are just coming together. It's like, they love, the Oakland Athletics. They're not just the A's. It's like, they're the Oakland A's. It's like, it's their team. They have such pride in their city. They're trying to get the owner to sell. So they had these shirts. And so I looked at it as an opportunity. They made like 10,000 of them. So I bought one on eBay. So I was like, at what point is this going to be something to look back on after they move and see, like, this was the last of the Oakland days? Yeah. Right? For sure. This was the last thing they did. And that's super cool.
That's just a cool story, too. Like, hearing that when you told me, I'm like, that looked really familiar. Like, so I'm like, is that an Acer? And then you told me, like, oh, that must have been an Acer. Because I remember, like, excuse me, I remember you telling me, like, or not you telling me, but, like, I remember seeing on Instagram or something like that, or on Facebook or something like that, like, the player, like, the fans were really, like, sold out Oakland A's Stadium. Like, just like an old video, and I take the data of it. I'm like, no, this is not. This is like yesterday. And I see why, and like they're saying, like, they're literally chanting, "You sell the team." I'm like, this is complete mayhem. Like, this is so crazy. I didn't expect. I'm like, I thought this was from like 10 years ago. I didn't know this was from like literally last night.
That's what it looked like. If you go and you watch that game, they ended up. I think they won that game because that was during their like pretty good win streak. Yeah. And then like it reminds you of like 2013 or whatever. That was the year where like you go and you look at A's games and they're crazy fans, the crazy stadium, even being like that crappy football, baseball stadium. Like they were making the most out of it, and those fans were insane. Yeah, it was one of the best fan bases in baseball. It was one of the best places to be a player, and then now, like 10 years later, everything's gone. You know?
It's so crazy. That's one of the franchises I'm like, I have to show you this video afterwards. I can't play it on air because I don't want to get in trouble or copyright with YouTube. But it's so crazy. I remember. Yeah, I think you'll like it. It's pretty funny. But it's so true. I think because like the premise of the video is talking about like how crazy great the ALS is this year, like with the Rangers and the Angels and everybody like that, the Astros, and like how good we're all doing. But like the A's are just completely like they're up the creek without a paddle. Like they're really up against it right now. Like they're probably like the lowest, if not the lowest, like team in like all of baseball.
On, like a pretty good like hot streak, and they're still the worst team in baseball.
Yeah, they're hot streak for the A's, but not hot streak for the baseball in general. It's completely crazy to think that. Like, it's so crazy. I mean, the A's, because I went to Vegas. I was telling Connor off air. Like, I remember when I went to Vegas a few weeks back, and like the Vegas Knights were just starting the finals. They obviously won. Everybody who's a sports fan knew that, but so like the Vegas Knights won that's when they just started, and then the WNBA team just won their championship not that long before. And then they obviously had the football team here. But I remember then that's when the rumors were going around, at least before I started hearing them, that like the A's were thinking about moving to Vegas or something like that. And I remember overhearing a couple of conversations at a couple of places I went to, like, man, let me just tell y'all, they hate it. That's the best way. That's the best clean version of the way I can say is like they hate it up there, because there's a lot of conversations like they think they're not very fond of Oakland coming to Vegas.
Yeah. All their teams they're becoming like the Oakland Vegas team.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like that's pretty much. That's a good way. I didn't even think about it like that. Like they got the Oakland Raiders. Yeah. That's true. I didn't even think about it like that.
People are talking about how the NBA is going to expand and they're going to make a new team. Like at this point, they're just going to move the Golden State Warriors. They're going to move them out of Oakland too. They're going to move them out to Las Vegas.
Probably, yeah. They get a NBA team or something.
Actually, that'll probably be the only one that stays, because at this point, with 30 teams, they can move up to 32 and they can add Seattle and Vegas back.
Oh yeah.
At this point, I think they're just waiting for Braun to retire so we can buy a team without, violating league rules or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. That'd be a good idea. I didn't even think about it like that way. They got like 2 more teams and then doing all that, like expanding. I think that could be a good thing too, for sure, in the long run.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? I think just if you think about it, I was thinking about this the other day. I think yesterday I was like, that's so crazy that like if when the A's moved to Vegas, that like Ricky Henderson is gonna have like all these like a couple of stats for like the Las Vegas Athletics, and he's never stepped foot in
he's never played an MLB game in Vegas.
No,
and yet he's the best team in Vegas history.
Yeah, for sure. Like,
or the best player.
Yeah, it's so crazy. Like, if they keep the name to Ricky Henderson Field or whatever it's called, stadium, it's so crazy. Like Ricky Henderson Stadium in Las Vegas, which is completely like.
It's way out there, but like at the same time, how much he changed the game. Even me, like I never watched him play, obviously.
Yeah, me either.
But like he changed the game so much that he's such a big part of A's baseball. Not even Oakland A's, but just A's baseball in general. So I mean, I see it, but it's also kind of weird, like in the back of your head, like he never played in Vegas. He never thought about them being the Vegas,
A's. Yeah.
I don't know.
Completely crazy, but yeah, that's so crazy. A lot of stuff going on, obviously, in the sports world, and going to Harvard and all that. A lot of crazy stuff going on. It sounds like, huh?
Yeah.
Cool, but yeah. Man, we've been talking for 56 minutes. It's completely crazy, man. But thank you. A lot of stuff is. It feels like we've covered a lot, huh?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what else to talk about because we literally went from like Harvard to like Ricky Henderson.
Yeah.
There's something I didn't think we were gonna talk about.
Somewhere in there.
It
moved around. Yeah.
It moved around a little bit, but yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, dude. I mean, I had a blast.
Yeah, no, it's super fun. Best interview I've done.
Really?
Over the past, like, 6 or 7 or whatever.
Wow.
This is the most fun one. It's not even like an interview. It's like I'm just hanging out.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I want this podcast to be. Is like hanging out. I don't want it to be like. I want you to come back. Like, I want people to come on, like, chill and hang, not like, oh, let me just get on button my tie up a little bit more. I don't want it to be like that. Like. I don't want everybody to be a stiff out here,
I mean, I got shorts and a t-shirt on. I'm not
obviously me too. I mean, obviously that's me every day. But yeah. So thanks for coming on. I mean, I know you're gonna do great in Boston, Harvard. So
cool. Thank
congratulations on everything. I can't congratulate you enough, man.
Hey, congrats on the podcast. I love this podcast.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate it. So, yeah. Hopefully, this will be out soon. Take a lot of editing, obviously. So, when I say a lot of editing, like it's going to be up on Spotify and YouTube, so everybody can go check it out. Do you have anything else you have to say before you head out?
No, I mean just I guess wait to see what I'm doing. So.
Cool. So, man, hey, thanks for coming on again. Thanks to everybody watching and listening. Don't forget to subscribe. Obviously, listen, follow along for a lot more stuff. And I think you said you're thinking about doing something for social media, right?
Yeah.
I don't want you to give too much away, but
I don't know. Something
we'll see.
Maybe in the works.
Yeah,
we'll try and get it figured out.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, thanks again, Connor, and thanks to everybody watching and paying attention and listening. See ya.